Yo, what's up? Dr. Swole here, MD bodybuilder, back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about bro splits for muscle growth. Now, bro splits are one of the most controversial topics in bodybuilding. So today I'm going to be sharing some fresh perspectives on the topic to help you decide whether you should be using a bro split. Bro splits gained popularity since they were used by a lot of pro bodybuilders with good success. A bro split is basically a split where every day is dedicated to just training one or two muscle groups. For example, having a dedicated chest day and a dedicated arm day. A lot of people in the science-based crowd are against bro splits, and the main reasoning here is that you have a very low frequency. So when we talk about bro splits, we're also talking about low frequency training. Alright, quick outline for today. We'll be talking about the advantages and disadvantages of the bro split. So we'll start off by talking about the pros of bro splits, then we'll move on to talking about the cons, then I'll go over a couple of example bro splits and show you some modifications that you can make to improve your programming. Lastly, we'll put everything together to give you some recommendations on whether you should use bro splits. If you've been enjoying my content so far, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's get into it. Now, a lot of people have had great success using bro splits, and there are some pros of using this split structure. Often, when people lump all of their muscle groups training for the week into one session, they get a better mind-muscle connection and also a better pump. Especially for beginners who may not have a lot of experience in targeting a specific muscle, putting a lot of sets for one muscle group into one session can help them develop a mind-muscle connection with that muscle. As the session goes on, they might get a pump and they might feel fatigued in that target muscle, and that will let them know that they're actually targeting the intended muscle group. Now, I put an asterisk here because mind-muscle connection does get easier as one becomes more experienced. Now, the other thing that can be a pro for bro splits, especially for beginners, is that it encourages this all-out mentality. This is common in bodybuilding where people are told to go to the gym and give everything they have into that one session. This can be good because it encourages hard work, and a lot of people aren't training hard enough. However, there are some implications of this if you take it to the extreme. The other thing that goes with the all-out mentality is failure training. Training to failure and even beyond failure is very popular in bodybuilding circles. And the thing about a bro split where you just train your muscle group once a week is that it gives you the entire week to recover. And it can allow recovery if you're training to failure all the time and putting a lot of stress on connective tissues. A couple of more advantages of the bro split are that beginners might have trouble estimating their repetitions in reserve and their overall stimulus of a session. Repetitions in reserve is basically how close you go to failure. I currently recommend training to about 1 or 2 reps shy of failure, and typically anywhere from 0 to 4 reps in reserve will give you a good hypertrophy stimulus. Now, the thing about RIR is beginners often have trouble estimating how far away they are from failure. So if you tell them to save 1 or 2 reps, they might end up being way off from that and having, say, 6 or 7 repetitions in reserve. And in that case, they aren't pushing hard enough and won't be getting a good hypertrophy stimulus. The other thing is they might have trouble estimating the overall stimulus of a session. A more experienced athlete can go into the gym and know exactly how much stimulus and fatigue they've generated and plan accordingly. However, a beginner might not know this. So what comes out of this is that it's often easier for beginners to just push everything to the extreme and go all the way until they can't go anymore, which basically lends itself to training to failure and completely exhausting a muscle group using a lot of sets in one session. And once you have such a tough session, you're going to need a lot of days to recover. The last thing about bro splits is that you'll spend less time warming up. If you're training your legs with heavy compound movements multiple times a week, you're going to have to warm up each time you train legs. And putting it all into one session reduces those extra warm-up sets across the week. Now, the last advantage of bro splits is that frequency doesn't matter as much if you're doing less than 10 sets per week for a muscle group. The current research suggests that when you equate for volume, if you're doing less than 10 sets per muscle group per week, frequency doesn't really matter. So if you're a beginner and using low volumes or just a low volume responder in general, you might get away with a low frequency. There is, however, a counter argument to this that I'll talk about in my recommendations. Alright, now let's talk about the cons of bro splits. The first major disadvantage is, as your volumes increase, you will have overall less productive volume if you're training a muscle group just once a week. The current research suggests that we should probably try and cap our volume for one muscle group to about 8 to 10 sets per session. Now, why is this the case? If you do a whole bunch of volume, say 15 to 20 sets for a muscle group in one session, you're going to be very fatigued in the latter parts of the session, and you won't be able to lift as much weight with as many reps for those last exercises. If you look at volume in terms of sets times reps times weight lifted, you're going to end up lifting overall less volume across the week. If you take it to the extreme, you might end up doing what people might call junk volume at the end of your session, which might result when you're at the end of your session and your muscles are so exhausted that your volume just isn't very productive at that point. Now, what if you only have to do 10 total sets across the week? I still think that if possible, it would be better to split that up because you're just going to be more fresh, and you probably will be more productive overall. Now, the next con of bro splits, which ties into the practice of training to failure, is that fatigue management becomes important for intermediate to advanced lifters. When you're a beginner, you're just not moving enough weight with your main movements to generate that much systemic fatigue across the week. So you can really go in and smash a muscle group in one session and not really suffer the consequences. However, especially as you become more advanced, training to failure all the time might interfere with your ability to do more productive volume. I did a video on failure training, so check it out if you want to go more in depth. A couple of more disadvantages of bro splits. You get less technique practice if you're training muscle groups just once a week. Some of the major movements like squats and bench press have a lot of technique involved. And if you can practice this technique more often, you'll get better at it, which can help you get stronger at the lift. Now, the last con of bro splits is that you get an uneven distribution of fatigue. If you have a dedicated leg day and a dedicated arm day, that leg day is going to be way more fatiguing than the arm day, and it won't be best for overall fatigue management throughout the week. All right, now let's look at a couple of bro splits and think about some possible modifications. A common 4-day bro split would have a day for chest and biceps, quads and calves, shoulders, triceps and abs, and back and hamstrings. And a common 5-day bro split might look like a chest day, legs, which would include quads and hamstrings, arms and abs, shoulders and calves, and back day. Now, a lot of supporters of bro splits will point out that you actually are training muscle groups twice a week in some cases. For example, your biceps would get trained twice a week if you include the secondary stimulus you get from pulling movements on back day. And your anterior delts and triceps would get trained twice a week because your pushing movements on chest day would also train those muscles. Now, if you wanted to get some of the benefits of higher frequency training while still using a bro split, you can improve the split structure by making some modifications and carefully choosing your exercises. Taking our 4-day split as an example here, if you take your chest and biceps day and add on side delts, then you'll be splitting up your shoulder training over 2 days. If you use an incline bench for one of your shoulder exercises, and or use close grip bench press as one of your tricep exercises, then you'll be splitting up your chest volume over 2 days. And if you count deadlifts for hamstrings or back and use some lunges as hamstring/glute training, then you'll also be splitting up your leg volume over twice a week. And you can add some calves in as well. All right, now let's put everything together we've talked about to give you some recommendations on bro splits. Starting off with frequency, my current recommendation is that you aim for a minimum of twice per week frequency for each muscle group, and that beyond that, you should try and have a max of 10 sets per muscle group per workout. Basically, you want to maximize the amount of productive volume, and spreading out your volume across the week can help you do this. So based off of this, you'll see that I'm generally against bro splits. Now, a bro split may work for beginners or people who respond to low volumes, like less than 10 sets per week. And this is actually supported in the literature. And when I say max 10 sets per muscle group per session, that means I recommend doing a twice per week frequency if you're doing up to 20 sets per muscle group per week. And if you're doing more than 20 sets, say up to 30 sets, I'd recommend splitting up that volume over 3 sessions. I think that using a bro split and using that all-out mentality where you go to failure all the time can be helpful for some beginners and some people who have trouble estimating their RAR, and for people who might respond to a low volume, high intensity type of training style. However, I still generally recommend the twice per week frequency, and here's why. I'd recommend that you train the main list more often for beginners or those with strength goals. And this is because it's really going to help with technique development. Now, if you're a powerlifter or very much into strength, I won't go too deep into strength programming here, but often training a lift more than once a week can be helpful, especially for the squat and bench press. Next recommendation is that you modify the split in terms of splitting up exercises across the week, as well as being careful about your exercise selection. You can make bro splits fit a twice per week frequency with some modifications. And lastly, do what's sustainable. Bodybuilding is a journey, and it's most important that you find a plan that you enjoy and can continue for the long term. That's all for now, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like the video and leave me a comment below. I'm really good about answering every single one of my comments, so you'll definitely hear back from me. In particular, what are your thoughts on bro splits? Let me know below. If you want to hear some advanced perspectives on bodybuilding, check out this playlist where I have a few of my podcast interviews with leading hypertrophy experts like Mike Isertel and Eric Helms. If you've been getting value from my channel, make sure you subscribe and share the channel with your fitness friends so they can benefit from it too. See you next time.